The heavy oak doors of the New Haven Metro Police Precinct burst open, not by human hand but by sheer, desperate force. A mud-caked, blood-soaked Labrador, panting like he'd just outrun a nightmare, collapsed onto the linoleum floor. The officers, startled, then alarmed, stared at the impossible sight. A small, motionless figure strapped to his back, a little girl, her hair matted with leaves and soil, her face pale, her tiny arms limp. This wasn't a lost pet. This was a warrior returning from a silent war. For 2 years, John Carter had traded his Army Ranger medals for solitude, drowning in a fog of silence and guilt. The unsolved murder of his wife Maya had shattered their world, leaving him with a gaping wound and a quiet, watchful daughter named Lily. It was Lily, in her innocent wisdom, who had brought the Labrador Shadow into their lives. "This one," she'd said at the shelter, her small fingers tracing the scar above the dog's eye. "His eyes are sad like mine." John had only agreed to keep Shadow because Lily refused to leave without him. He saw Shadow as another painful reminder of what they'd lost. But Lily found solace in the silent, steady presence that John couldn't yet offer. The morning Lily disappeared started like any other Tuesday. John dropped her off at school with a rushed kiss, the usual promise, "See you at 3." He remembered Shadow's unusual restlessness that day, pacing by the back door, barking, even nudging John with his wet nose, trying to drag him toward the trees behind the school. "Shadow, get it together," John had yelled, annoyed by the dog's agitated behavior, yanking him back. He'd dismissed it as a simple act of defiance. How many times does grief blind us, making us deaf to the very signs that could save us? If only he had truly seen the frantic urgency in Shadow's eyes then. The panic when Lily wasn't at the pickup spot was a cold hand gripping John's heart. Then came the call, Lily Carter was not at school today. The world tilted. Local police swarmed, quickly joined by the FBI. Agent Lena Davis, a sharp, observant agent with an uncanny intuition, arrived. While others focused on search patterns, Agent Davis kept finding her gaze drawn to Shadow, who sat by John's side, whimpering. "We've got trained canine units," a local officer grumbled. "We don't need a pet with PTSD messing up the scent." But Agent Davis saw more. "He's trying to tell us something," she murmured, a quiet conviction in her voice. And with that, Shadow did the impossible. He stood again, despite the exhaustion, his body trembling. He turned toward the precinct door, then back at them, with an unmistakable expression, "Follow me." And they followed. Shadow's impossible journey began as a desperate blur. Through the dense, rain-soaked woods he moved with singular purpose. His paws bled, leaving crimson streaks on fallen leaves, but he didn't falter. He crossed gurgling creeks, his body shivering, braved thorn-covered hills that clawed at his matted fur. Each mile was a testament to a love that defied exhaustion, a silent promise whispered in every labored breath, a will to overcome pain that no human could fully comprehend. He pushed beyond familiar trails, deeper into a place locals whispered about, Whispering Pines, a haunting area of old, forgotten logging roads and crumbling caves. Deep within Whispering Pines, hidden beneath a tangle of logs and branches, Shadow found it, a crude, camouflaged bunker. He couldn't get through the heavy metal door, but he pressed his muzzle to the bottom gap. "Shadow?" A weak, trembling voice, barely a whisper. It was Lily. "I knew you'd find me," she whimpered, and the sheer relief in her voice was a balm to Shadow's tormented soul. She told him everything in hushed tones. The distinct smell of cologne on the man who took her, the same scent on the man who had hurt her mom, and the plan to move her that very night. Shadow's low growl, a rumble from deep in his chest, was the only response. He knew that scent. He had never forgotten it. Neither had Lily. It was the smell that permeated their home the night Maya was murdered. Shadow, driven by instinct, knew. "They're moving me tonight," Lily's small voice whispered. Shadow's ears pivoted, picking up approaching footsteps. "King wants her gone by midnight," a guard muttered. Without hesitation, Shadow vanished into the shadows, crawling through a ventilation shaft barely wide enough for his thick frame. Just as the lock turned and a guard stepped inside, Shadow moved. The blur of muscle and fury launched from the shadows, jaws clamping down on the man's forearm. The tray clattered to the floor, food spilling across the concrete. The man screamed. Lily, seizing the distraction, slipped out of her room, barefoot and shivering. "This way," she whispered, leading Shadow toward a storage room she remembered. Inside was a narrow window. Lily scrambled onto Shadow's back, pushing herself up toward it. Her fingers found the latch. It creaked open. Cool, fresh air rushed in. She wriggled through the gap and dropped into the tall grass outside, heart pounding. "Come on, Shadow." But the Labrador stayed behind. The window was too small. Shadow barked once, soft, urgent. "They'll catch you," Lily cried, tears streaming. Shadow barked again, then turned to face the shouts. He was buying her time. Lily ran. She didn't look back. The echoes of a brutal past had finally merged with a desperate present. Lily ran, a small, terrified shadow disappearing into the pre-dawn gloom. She didn't slow down, didn't look back, until she heard her name. "Lily!" She froze. That voice, so familiar, so comforting. Out of the trees stepped Dr. Evelyn Reed, the beloved local veterinarian from New Haven, still wearing her lab coat, her vet bag slung over her shoulder. "It's okay, sweetheart," Dr. Reed said, her voice gentle. "You're safe now." Relief washed over Lily, a wave so strong it almost brought her to her knees. "Dr. Reed," she gasped. "Shadow found me. He's still in there. They're going to hurt him." Dr. Reed held up a calming hand. "Are you hurt?" "No, but Shadow? Just let me check you, okay?" Her smile, however, didn't quite reach her eyes. Then Lily smelled it. A faint, almost imperceptible scent beneath the rain and pine. Cologne. The same distinct, chemical cologne she'd smelled in the bunker. Lily's small face, already pale, drained of all color as recognition, cold and undeniable, washed over her. "Cologne? The same cologne?" Her voice was barely a whisper, thick with fear. "You smell like them." Dr. Reed froze, her composure cracking. "What did you say?" Lily didn't back down. "You're one of them." Just then, headlights cut through the trees. A voice, raw with desperation, shouted from behind, "Lily!" It was John, soaked to the bone, sprinting through the mud with a pistol in his hand. Behind him, Agent Lena Davis and 2 armed FBI agents emerged, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Shadow found me," Lily cried. "He's still inside." Agent Davis didn't hesitate. She raised her sidearm and pointed it directly at Dr. Reed. Hands in the air, now. But it was too late. The woman had already reached into her bag. Just as her fingers curled around something metallic, Shadow, with a guttural roar, exploded from the tree line. He crashed into Dr. Reed like a meteor. The syringe flew from her hand. She hit the ground hard. Back in town, news spread fast. The New Haven Metro Police Department, working with the FBI, coordinated a full raid of the bunker. Dozens of agents swept the forest. Inside, they found evidence of a well-organized trafficking ring. But King, Alistair Blackwood, was gone. Lily and Shadow were rushed to the hospital. She had minor scrapes. He, however, was hanging by a thread, his shoulder badly burned, his breathing ragged. John sat in the corner of the waiting room watching over Lily. "Is Shadow okay?" She'd whisper every few minutes. "He's fighting," John would say, just like he always does. Sometimes it's not the biggest battles, but the quiet, persistent fights that truly define us. John remembered Shadow's initial medical assessment. Critical, lung damage, internal bleeding. He also remembered the vet's words. He's not just surviving, he's choosing to. Days later, with Shadow recovering slowly in the veterinary wing, Agent Davis found John. "We found something," she said, her arm in a sling. "Security footage from the station. Something's wrong with Shadow's collar. It's thicker than it used to be. We think something might be inside." They retrieved it from storage. A forensic tech carefully cut it open. Inside they found a small, waterproof capsule containing a micro SD card. Agent Davis stared at it, almost reverently. "Jackpot!" As the agents rushed the evidence to a secure lab, Lily pulled John into the hospital garden for a short walk. Shadow, still bandaged, walking slowly beside them. "He's looking for something," Lily said suddenly. "See how his ears keep flicking?" John watched. "He's not just walking, he's scanning." Lily nodded. "Mum said he could keep secrets." She paused, her small voice thoughtful. "She said he could find treasure." John knelt down, his heart pounding. Treasure. Lily would hide things in the yard and say, "Find the treasure, Shadow." His breath caught. "Lily," he said gently, "did your mom ever hide anything in the pond behind our house?" Lily tilted her head. "I don't know, but Shadow would." Shadow's ears perked at Maya's name. He was listening. John stood. "I need to make a call." The pond behind John Carter's house wasn't much to look at. A few cattails, a half-rotted wooden bench, and murky water reflecting grey sky. It was quiet. Too quiet, the kind of place grief settles into. But that afternoon something stirred. Shadow stood at the edge, eyes locked on the water, muscles tight. Agent Davis crouched nearby. "You're really sure about this?" John gave a tight nod. "Lily said Maya used to train him here, hide objects underwater, told him to find the treasure." "Any idea what kind of evidence might be down there?" Agent Davis asked. John's voice cracked. "If Maya hid it, it's big, and it's everything." Agent Davis exhaled. "All right, let's see what this dog's got." John crouched beside Shadow, placing a hand on his soaked fur. "Okay, boy," he whispered. "This is the last thing she asked of you. Let's finish it." He looked Shadow in the eye. "Find the treasure." The dog didn't hesitate. Despite his injuries, Shadow stepped into the water, like he'd done it 100 times. He paddled toward the center, paused, then dove. By the time he was done, Shadow had retrieved 5 identical waterproof plastic cases. Then he staggered from the water and collapsed at John's feet. Agent Davis called over her tech team immediately. Inside the first case were photographs, financial records, and a voice recorder. John recognized the handwriting instantly. Maya's. Agent Davis held up a folder full of account transfers, shell company names and real estate holdings. "This connects Blackwood to 3 offshore companies tied to child trafficking," she said, almost breathless. "John, this isn't just a case. This is the whole damn operation." John didn't speak. He was too busy kneeling next to Shadow, whispering, "Good boy, you did it. You really did it." The pieces of the puzzle were finally rearranging themselves. Maya hadn't just stumbled upon this, she had been building a case. She hadn't just been murdered, she had been silenced. That night, back at the safe house, John couldn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table, one hand wrapped around a cup of black coffee, the other holding a sealed envelope he'd found in the last case. It was addressed simply, "For John." Maya's handwriting. He'd know it anywhere. His fingers trembled as he opened it. Inside was a letter and a small flash drive. The letter was dated the week before her death. "John, if you're reading this, something has happened to me," it began. "Please know I did everything I could to protect you and Lily, but Blackwood is dangerous. I got too close and I knew my time was running out. I trained Shadow for this, for the day I couldn't be there. He's not just a dog. He's a safeguard, a courier, a soldier. But most of all, he's family. Trust him, even when you can't trust yourself. You're stronger than you think. I love you. I love our daughter. Keep her safe, and when the time is right, bury them with the truth. Maya." John stared at the paper for a long time, then pressed it to his chest. "When the time is right, bury them with the truth." Ange. The truth, buried for so long, was finally revealing itself, a testament to Maya's unwavering courage. It was a stark reminder that some evils wore expensive suits and navigated a world where justice was sometimes for sale. The next morning, Agent Davis walked in with tired eyes and fresh intel. "Blackwood made contact," John stiffened. "What?" "He's offering a trade, Lily's safety in exchange for the original evidence. He thinks we only have copies. He doesn't know we have the pond cases." John clenched his jaw. This was it. "He wants a meeting, doesn't he?" Agent Davis nodded. "Tomorrow night, private location. You go alone." John stared out the window, rain hitting the glass like a war drum. "It's a trap," he stated, his voice flat. "Absolutely," Davis confirmed. But we'll be there. The night of the meeting arrived. John wore a hidden wire. Tactical teams were staged miles away. A drone tracked the area. The meeting place, an abandoned barn on the edge of an old tobacco field, a place where secrets could easily be swallowed. When John entered, Blackwood was already there. "You look tired, John," he said casually. "You look like a man running out of road," John replied, his voice steel. "Do you have what I asked for?" John held up a briefcase loaded with dummy files. "Where's my daughter?" Blackwood smiled. Then came the click of a gun. But before the shot could be fired, the barn's rafters lit up with red dots. Laser scopes. FBI. A voice thundered, "Drop your weapon!" Blackwood froze. Seconds later, Agent Davis stepped into the light. "End of the line, Alistair," he laughed bitterly. "Took you long enough." Back at the safe house, John returned to find Lily asleep on the couch, Shadow curled protectively beside her. He sat down on the floor next to them. "You did it, buddy," he whispered, scratching behind Shadow's ears. "You brought us home." The dog gave a quiet grunt and laid his head back down. 2 weeks later, the trial began. Blackwood pleaded not guilty. It didn't matter. The evidence Maya had preserved, meticulously documented and hidden, combined with Dr. Evan Reed's full confession, sealed the case. He'd never see daylight again. The last time John visited Maya's grave, he brought 2 things: Lily and Shadow. He placed Maya's letter and a photo of Shadow on her headstone. Then he knelt and whispered, "He kept his promise." Behind him, Lily placed a bouquet of daisies. "I miss you, Mommy," she said. "Shadow says hi." The farmhouse was quiet, too quiet. John had learned to fear that kind of silence, the kind that hangs heavy after the storm, but right before something worse. He sat on the couch, Lily asleep on his shoulder, her small hand curled into his flannel shirt. Across the room, Shadow lay on a thick blanket, bandages still wrapped around his torso, but his ears twitching, alert even in rest. It had been a week since Blackwood's arrest. The case had exploded across national news. Maya's name was in headlines. Shadow was called a miracle dog by anchors, who didn't even know the half of it. And John? John had become a symbol, a father who lost everything and clawed his way back. But he wasn't thinking about the cameras or the trial. He was thinking about what Agent Davis had told him. "We think someone tipped Blackwood off before the raid," she'd said. "It had to be someone inside our system." And that meant one thing: they weren't safe yet. The fight for justice was far from over. At 3:07 a.m., the glass in the back kitchen window shattered. Shadow's head shot up. John's eyes flew open, instantly alert. He scooped Lily into his arms, rolling off the couch, pressing her to the floor behind the armchair. She stirred, but didn't scream. "Stay down," he whispered. Footsteps creaked across the porch. Slow, deliberate. Shadow let out a low growl, a sound older than fear. John reached for his phone. No signal. The power had been cut. Then the front door swung open. Framed in the moonlight stood Alistair Blackwood, alive, free, and holding a gun. "Hello, John," he said casually. "You've got something that belongs to me." John's throat went dry. "You're supposed to be in custody." Blackwood smiled. "Money buys many things: time, influence, silence. Sometimes it buys freedom." He stepped inside. Beside him stood Dr. Evelyn Reed, pale, trembling. John rose slowly, putting himself between them and the couch where Shadow now stood, growling, his hackles up. "You're not taking her," John said. Blackwood didn't even blink. "The girl! Oh, John, I don't want her. I want what Maya left behind." "You're too late. The FBI has it all." "Not all," Blackwood said, his tone tightening. "She kept backups. Physical ones, and I think you know where they are." "You're wrong." "I don't think I am." Behind John, Lily peeked out from behind the armchair. "Daddy!" Blackwood's eyes lit up when he saw her. "You should have kept her hidden," he said, lifting the gun. Shadow moved so fast even John didn't see it coming. One moment he was beside the couch, the next he was airborne, a mass of fur and fury. The gun went off. Shadow slammed into Blackwood, knocking him backward into the wall. The weapon skidded across the floor. Dr. Reed screamed and dropped to her knees. Blood seeped through her fingers. John lunged for the gun, but Blackwood got to it first. They fought, fists, knees, elbows, years of rage behind every punch. Shadow, despite his reopened wounds, leapt again, locking his jaws around Blackwood's wrist just as the gun fired. The bullet missed John. Lily screamed. Shadow collapsed, blood spreading fast on the floor. John roared, slamming Blackwood to the ground. This time, he didn't hold back. A punch, then another and another, until Blackwood stopped moving, until silence returned. Only now, it wasn't empty. It was full of something much worse. "Shadow!" Lily sobbed, crawling toward the Labrador. "Please wake up!" John knelt beside her. "He's breathing," he whispered, but barely. Sirens howled in the distance. Help was coming, but it might be too late. Shadow's breathing was shallow, his eyes fluttered. Blood soaked the bandages, the floor, John's hands. "You did good, boy," John whispered. "You saved us again." Shadow's tail thumped once, then stillness. "No!" Lily screamed. "Don't go!" John wrapped his arms around her, both clinging to the dog that had carried their pain, their hope, their lives. The sirens got louder, closer, but not fast enough. 15 minutes later, the house was swarming. FBI agents cuffed Blackwood, barely conscious. Paramedics worked on Dr. Reed. She would survive. Agent Davis sprinted in, took one look at Shadow and grabbed the radio. "We need a medivac. Animal trauma, Richmond, priority 1. The medic shook her head. "He's not stable enough to move." Lily wiped her tears and stood. The girl who'd once been silent now looked every adult in the eye. "Yes, he is. My mum trained him for this. He's playing dead. He did it before. He's just waiting for it to be safe again." Everyone froze. Agent Davis crouched beside her. "Lily, what did you say?" "He's not dying," she said. "He's hiding." John met the agent's eyes. "She's right." An hour later, a helicopter touched down. Shadow was loaded onto a gurney, IVs in both legs. Lily refused to let go of his paw. In the air, she whispered to him, "You promised Mom you'd protect us. You kept your promise. Now let me keep mine. I'm going to get you home." At the Richmond Veterinary Trauma Center, the team was waiting. They had prepped an operating room. "He's critical," the lead surgeon said. "Can he make it?" John asked. The doctor paused. "If he wasn't the dog he is, I'd say no." Hours passed. The waiting room was silent. Lily had fallen asleep in John's lap, and then, finally, the surgeon stepped out. John stood. "How is he?" The man pulled off his gloves. "He's alive. He made it through surgery, but the next 24 hours will be touch and go." John looked down at his daughter, still asleep. "She said he was playing dead," he whispered. "She might have been right," the doctor replied. "I've never seen anything like it." That night, they were allowed to see him. Shadow lay in a recovery kennel, hooked up to oxygen. Lily stepped in first. He opened his eyes just for her. "Hi, buddy," she whispered. "We're safe now." Shadow gave a soft whine. She knelt beside him. "I told you," she said. "You're not done yet." Across town, the final pieces fell into place, with Dr. Evelyn Reed talking and Blackwood's confessions secured. Law enforcement raided dozens of facilities tied to the trafficking ring. Children were rescued, homes reunited. Maya's evidence, every file, recording and photo, was released to the public. She became a national hero. But for John and Lily, she was something even more powerful. The woman who planned for everything. The mother who prepared her daughter, even in death. In the days that followed, John stood vigil beside Shadow's bed. When Shadow finally stood, wobbly, slow, the staff applauded. When he barked again for the first time, Lily cried, not because she was scared, but because she knew the fight was over, and they had won. The sun was rising over the Appalachian foothills when Shadow took his first unassisted steps. His legs trembled, muscles weak, but he moved forward anyway. John stood beside the recovery kennel. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor. "You're doing it," she whispered. "Good boy." Shadow paused, looked at her and let out a soft huff. Dr. Patel stepped forward. He's healing faster than I expected. Strong will, strong heart. John smiled. He always had more heart than the rest of us combined. The world outside their small orbit kept turning. Blackwood was in federal custody now. No bond, no more influence to buy silence. He'd be facing multiple life sentences. And with Maya's evidence made public, there was no path back for him. Dr. Reed remained in a medical holding facility, recovering and awaiting trial. Her confession had filled in the final gaps. She'd known about the trafficking network, but in the end she'd flinched, and that hesitation had saved Lily's life. Agent Davis told John, "There's a very slim chance she might get some leniency." John didn't have the energy to care. All that mattered now was what came next. A few days later, John was packing when a nurse approached. "Mr. Carter, we found something." She held out a simple wooden box, old, handcrafted. It was under Shadow's bed. The FBI found it. Carved on the lid in delicate cursive were the words, "For John." Maya's handwriting. John's chest tightened. Inside were two things, a sealed envelope and a small voice recorder. His hands shook as he sat down in the waiting room. He pressed play. Maya's voice came through, soft but unwavering. "John, if you're hearing this, something has happened to me. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything while I was alive. I thought I had more time. But I also knew that if anything ever happened, I'd need you to finish what I started." John leaned forward, eyes stinging. "You always told me you weren't good with feelings, but you were wrong. You loved hard. You just didn't know how to show it sometimes. That's why I trained Shadow, not just to protect Lily, but to guide you back if you got lost. There's a light in you, John. I saw it the first time you walked into my life with that crooked smile and the loudest laugh. Don't let my death turn that light off. Don't give it to grief or guilt. You're still her father. You're still you. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up, love her, and when she asks questions about me, don't make me a ghost. Make me real. And trust the dog, John. He's smarter than all of us." There was a pause. Then, "I love you. I always have. I always will. Keep going. She needs you, and so do I." The tape ended. John didn't move. He just sat there, holding on to her voice like a lifeline. That night, he read the letter aloud to Lily. She cried. So did he. And Shadow, lying at their feet, let out a long, contented sigh. It was the sound of peace. Weeks passed. Shadow was discharged from the trauma center with instructions for light walking. No one could stop him from staying close to Lily's side at all times. They returned to New Haven quietly. The house still smelled like memory, but it no longer felt haunted. John spent a few days clearing out Maya's office, not erasing her but bringing her into the light. He framed her journalism awards and placed a photo of her with Lily on the mantel. He replaced the dusty liquor bottles with books. Every evening he cooked dinner, and the three of them sat at the table like a family again. Shadow got his own chair, of course. One morning, as the first snow of the season dusted the back porch, John found Lily watching the pond. Shadow sat beside her. "Thinking?" John asked. She nodded. "Just remembering." "Anything in particular?" Lily took a sip, then looked up. "Do you think Mum knew she was going to die?" John hesitated. "I think she knew the danger, but she hoped she could stop it in time." Lily was quiet. She didn't just leave evidence, she left instructions. John raised an eyebrow. She told Shadow what to do. She trusted him more than anyone, even more than you. John smiled. She was usually right. Later that week, Agent Davis stopped by. She looked different, out of her FBI gear. She brought donuts and updates. "The files Maya kept, they're leading to more arrests across the country. Her work is helping dismantle something bigger than we imagined." She paused. "She changed everything." John looked down at the recorder on the kitchen table. "Yeah," he said softly. "She always did." As Agent Davis was leaving, she knelt to scratch Shadow behind the ears. "You did good, partner," she said. Shadow gave her a look that almost resembled pride. That Sunday, the three of them, John, Lily and Shadow visited Maya's grave. There were fresh flowers. Lily added her own, wild daisies. They stood in silence. "I used to come here and feel nothing but guilt," John said. "I blamed myself. I blamed this dog. I shut down." He looked at Lily. "But you brought me back." Then at Shadow. "And you never gave up on me." John knelt by the headstone. "I promise you, Maya, I'm going to raise her right. I'm going to give her the life you dreamed of, and when she asks about you, I'll tell her the truth. All of it." Lily came beside him. "She already knows you were brave," John whispered. "Now she'll know you were also brilliant and kind and funny and real." Shadow sat between them, silent but solid. The three of them, still here, still standing. Back at home, Lily pulled a worn notebook from her backpack. "What's this?" "My story," she said. "I'm writing it all down for other kids so they know they're not alone." John opened the first page. In careful handwriting it said, "My name is Lily Carter. I was taken, but I was never truly lost because someone always believed in me. Because a dog named Shadow never stopped looking, and because my mom left behind a map. This is our story." 1 year later, the farmhouse looked different. Not just because of the new paint or the garden, not just because the porch had a swing, but because the air felt different, lighter, like the weight of grief had finally lifted. It had been 365 days since they brought Shadow home. Today wasn't just any day. Today was Shadow's retirement ceremony. The small-town firehouse had never seen such a crowd. Reporters, kids, FBI officers filled rows of chairs. John adjusted his tie awkwardly at the podium while Lily stood beside him, holding Shadow's leash. The Labrador, fully recovered, sat alert, chest puffed out, tail wagging. He wore a custom vest that read, "Retired, still a hero." John cleared his throat. "Folks, I'm not a man of many speeches, but today, I've got to try." The room grew quiet. A year ago I was lost. I was drowning in grief. And then everything changed. Not just because a bad man was caught, but because a dog refused to give up. And because a little girl believed in both of us. He paused, looking at Lily. And because my wife left behind a legacy, stronger than fear. There were a few sniffles. Shadow didn't just save Lily, he saved me too. And today we honor him. Not just for what he did, but for what he gave back. John knelt beside the dog. From a small wooden box, he pulled out a new tag, "Always faithful, forever family." He clipped it to Shadow's collar. "Welcome to retirement, buddy." The crowd erupted. Shadow leaned into John's chest, closed his eyes, and sighed. After the ceremony, they returned home to a celebration, just close friends, cupcakes, old photos, and laughter. Laughter had been rare. Now it flowed freely. Agent Davis stayed late. She was moving to Denver, but had made the trip back. "You ever think about writing it all down?" she asked John. He nodded toward the kitchen where Lily was showing her storybook. "I don't need to," John said. "She already is," Agent Davis smiled. "Then I think you'll be just fine." That night, after everyone had left, John sat alone by the pond. Shadow lay beside him, head resting on John's boots. The water shimmered, the same pond where Maya had hidden the truth. John pulled out a letter, one last one he'd written. He unfolded it slowly. "Maya, you told me once that grief would either harden a person or crack them open. For a while, I let it harden me. But you gave me a road back. Through your voice, through Lily, through him. I wish you could see her now. Brave, funny, so much like you it hurts sometimes, but in the best way. We're okay now, I think." "No, I know. We're going to be okay. Thank you for never giving up on us. I'll carry you always. John." He folded the letter and dropped it into the water, where it floated briefly before sinking like a promise absorbed into the earth. Over the following months, life kept moving. Lily started 4th grade. She joined the school newspaper and published her first piece, "How My Dog Saved the World and Me." John began volunteering at the local shelter, rehabbing troubled dogs. They built a new fence, planted sunflowers, and adopted a rescue pup named Cody, a goofy lab mix with more energy than sense. Shadow approved. He spent his retirement sunbathing, patrolling the porch, and sometimes curling up at the foot of Lily's bed. On the anniversary of Maya's passing, they held a small ceremony at the pond. No speeches, no tears, just music, candles, and stories. Lily read from her journal. "My mum used to say that love isn't something you lose, it's something you grow into. At first I didn't understand that, but now I do. Because every time I look at Shadow I see her love. Every time I laugh with Dad, I feel it. Love doesn't die. It just changes shape." John placed a small wooden carving by the bench. A Labrador with angel wings, and beneath it, a plaque. Maya Carter, mother, wife, warrior. She lit the path. We followed the light. That evening, as they sat watching fireflies dance, Lily leaned against John. "Do you think Mum's proud of us?" John smiled. "I think she never stopped being proud." Shadow wagged his tail. Lily giggled. "And do you think Shadow knows he's a hero?" John ruffled the dog's fur. "I think he knows he's loved, and that's what matters most." One last thing before we end this story. Thank you for following this journey, from the first bark to the final breath of peace, for believing in the unbreakable bond between a girl, her dog, and a broken father who found healing in their love. This story wasn't just about danger or darkness, it was about endurance, loyalty, family, and hope, especially for those who feel like the world has given up on them. Now we'd love to hear from you. What would you do if your dog tried to lead you somewhere? Would you follow them without question? Or have you ever had a pet that you swear understood you better than most people? Drop your answers below, we'll be reading them all. And if Shadow's story touched your heart, please share this video, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Heroes of the Heart for more powerful stories like this one from all of us. Thank you for listening.